Hey guys, Jason for Prodogzdogtraining. I'm going to give you 3 tips today to get the most out of your training. So clients come to me all the time, they'd say, Jason, my dog's not listening to me. Or Jason, my dog, when I take him off leash, the dog takes off and runs away from me. Or Jason, I just don't feel like my dog really likes me or wants to be with me. And these can come down to 3 tips that I always like to give people when I meet them. 1, clear communication. 2, expectation. And 3, timing. Let's kind of break these things down. So clear communication. How we communicate with the dog makes a really big difference. People come to me all the time and they're like, I'm telling the dog to come and the dog's not coming. I'm telling the dog to sit down and the dog's not sitting down. Or, whatever it may be. And one of the things that we first look at is our language that we're using with the dog, especially in a multi-family household. So here's a good example. Let's say mom, she's saying come. Dad, he's saying come on to the dog, and the kids are saying get over here. If the dog is hearing 3 different cues or commands for one behavior, the dog's gonna be really, really frustrated and not exactly sure what we want from the dog. So then people start yelling at the dog, or they start clapping or snapping their fingers, and the dog's like, hey, I have no idea what you want. So the clearer we can keep our communication with the dogs, the cleaner the language, the easier it is for the dog to understand exactly what we want. Now, of course, we have to shape those behaviors. If you start saying come to your puppy and it has no idea what come is, it doesn't matter what word you use, it's probably not going to understand it. So, of course, we need to shape those behaviors. However, when we are communicating with our dog, we need to make sure that we are using the same cues consistently all the time and everybody in the same household. So typically what I encourage people to do is go home, write down all their commands, put them on the refrigerator. That way everybody can be on the same page, can see the words, and know exactly what you're using. Okay, let's talk about expectation. Let's say you want your dog, when you say come, to run to you right away. Don't we all? I do. Let's say you take your dog and it doesn't really have a solid recall. You bring it to the ocean or a park and you let it go free before it really even has a solid recall. Your dog's running around, sees another dog, you say come. The dog says, nope, I'm gonna go run over to that dog. You're creating an unfair expectation. In other words, you put the dog in a situation where it's gonna fail, the dog failed, and you're saying come, and the dog's not coming on the recall, and so we set the dog up for failure. We create an unfair expectation. So what we need to do is we need to work on our training in a neutral environment, an environment that the dog is used to, like your backyard, your house, wherever the dog is like, there's not a whole lot going on, the dog is like, okay, it's kind of boring here, mom and dad are the most important thing. Then we can start creating fair expectation. Another one I hear all the time is, hey, I don't like my dog on the furniture. However, most of the time I ask them, well, when you get home at night, do you like the dog to be with you? Well, yeah, I like the dog to jump on the furniture and hang out with me. The problem is we're creating unfair expectations because sometimes we're allowing it to happen and sometimes we don't want it to happen. So we need to be fair with our expectation and consistent with our expectation. The last is timing. Timing in dog training is probably one of the most important things besides engagement, but one of the most important things that people fail on a lot of times. Well, here's what I mean. Let's say your dog's out in the backyard and you say come, the dog comes running to you, and you want to reward the dog for that behavior. You want to reinforce that behavior. If you go to your refrigerator, open up your refrigerator, find a piece of bait, cut a piece of bait, and then give it to the dog, and 30 seconds to a minute goes by, the dog is not going to necessarily correlate why it got that reward. We need to be within a 2 to 3 second time range. So what we do is we create a behavior marker. A behavior marker is basically a clicker. It's called Pavlovian thinking. We charge a clicker, we can charge a word, and that word means there's a piece of food coming. So your dog's in the backyard, you don't have any food directly on you, but you want to reward the dog the moment it gets there. So you say come, the dog knows that if I come to you, I get rewarded. When the dog gets there, you mark that behavior, and the dog knows, oh, I hear that word. In my case, I use yes. The dog hears the word yes and knows there's a reward coming. In the next minute, at the point you said yes, actually reinforces the behavior. So it helps bridge that time between when the dog offered the behavior and when the reward is coming. And this is really important. So these 3 tips today will drastically help your training. And if you come to me for a private session, I first go over these 3 tips and explain the same thing I'm doing in the video to you. That way you can understand some of the logic behind our training and how to get the most out of your training. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. There's going to be other tips coming up. If you guys have any questions, feel free to visit my website, Prodogzdogtraining.com. Thank you so much and happy training.